Life forms we weren't supposed to find. They were told to stop looking. The environment was too extreme. Nothing could survive there. For decades, science operated under a quiet certainty. Life required balance, moderate temperatures, predictable chemistry, a narrow window where biology could function. Beyond that window lay emptiness, rock, ice, radiation, death. That assumption shaped how we searched for life and where we believed it could exist. To understand why that belief no longer holds, we need to return to the limits science once trusted. Boiling water sterilized, crushing pressure destroyed cells, toxic chemicals erased complexity. These were not guesses. They were rules, reinforced by experiment after experiment. So when early instruments detected biological signatures in places that violated every one of those rules, the results were dismissed. Contamination, they said, faulty sensors, human error. Life simply did not belong there. But the signals kept appearing, deep beneath the ocean floor, where sunlight never reaches, inside acidic pools that dissolve metal, frozen in ice older than civilization. Organisms were not only present, they were active, metabolizing, reproducing, adapting. This was the first unsettling reveal. Life was not surviving despite the extremes. It was thriving because of them. Researchers coined a new term to contain the anomaly: extremophiles, life forms that flourish where nothing else should. At first, they were treated as exceptions, curiosities that proved the rule by breaking it. But the more scientists looked, the more exceptions they found. Each discovery pushed the boundary further. Higher heat, lower pH, greater radiation, crushing pressure. And every time, life appeared again, reshaped but unmistakable. What had once seemed like a narrow window began to look like an illusion. The problem was no longer where life could exist. It was how much life we had been failing to notice. And the deeper researchers went, the more uncomfortable the implications became. Because if life could emerge and persist under conditions once thought impossible, then the rules defining life itself were incomplete. And that realization was only the beginning. As discoveries accumulated, scientists were forced to revisit their definitions. Life was no longer described by comfort, but by chemistry, not by stability, but by resilience. The environments once labeled hostile were revealed to be ecosystems with their own logic. In boiling hydrothermal vents, organisms use heat as fuel. Their proteins folded tighter instead of unraveling. In acidic lakes, cells built membranes resistant to corrosion. In radioactive zones, DNA repair systems operated at astonishing speed. These life forms were not fragile. They were optimized. This led to a deeper reveal. Extremes were not barriers. They were selective pressures. Places where only the most efficient systems could survive. Complexity did not retreat there. It specialized. The implications reached far beyond Earth. Planets once dismissed as sterile were reconsidered. Frozen moons, toxic atmospheres, high radiation worlds. The search for life expanded outward, no longer constrained by human comfort. But the real tension emerged closer to home. Some of these organisms did not just survive extremes. They altered them. Microbes changed local chemistry. They reshaped minerals. They produced energy in unexpected ways. Life was not adapting to the environment. It was co-creating it. This blurred a line science had long relied on: the separation between living and non-living systems. In extreme environments, that boundary became porous. Chemical reactions fed biology. Biology reshaped chemistry. Feedback loops formed without clear beginnings. Then came a troubling observation. Some extremophiles shared ancient genetic traits thought to belong to Earth's earliest life. This suggested something profound, that extreme environments were not evolutionary dead ends. They were origins. Life may not have begun in gentle conditions at all. It may have emerged in chaos, heat, and pressure. Stability could have been the exception, not the rule. This reframed the entire story of life on Earth. The organisms we weren't supposed to find were not anomalies. They were reminders. Reminders that life does not ask permission to exist. It exploits whatever physics allows. And that understanding set the stage for a much deeper conflict. The conflict deepened when scientists considered the consequences of these findings. If life thrives in extremes, then containment becomes uncertain. Boundaries once believed secure began to look fragile. Organisms adapted to radiation, pressure, and toxicity challenged assumptions about sterilization. Procedures designed to eliminate life no longer guaranteed absence. Spacecraft cleaning protocols were questioned. Medical sterilization methods re-examined. The idea of a truly lifeless environment became harder to defend. This raised ethical and practical concerns. If extremophiles could survive interplanetary travel, what did that mean for exploration? Could we contaminate other worlds before understanding them? Or had life already spread further than we imagined? The possibility that biology could travel, endure, and see new environments unsettled long-standing planetary protection policies. The tension reached a new level when researchers discovered extremophile traits emerging in familiar organisms. Genes responsible for extreme tolerance appeared through horizontal transfer. Adaptations once confined to rare environments began surfacing elsewhere. Resilience was not isolated. It was contagious. This suggested that life's toolkit was shared more freely than assumed. Under enough pressure, organisms borrowed solutions from one another. Survival was collaborative, not competitive. The emotional peak approached as scientists recognized the pattern. Life did not evolve toward comfort. It evolved toward persistence. Extreme simply made that truth impossible to ignore. This forced a reconsideration of extinction itself. Perhaps life is harder to erase than to create. Perhaps collapse is not an ending, but a reshuffling of forms. Life retreats, recombines, and returns in unfamiliar shapes. The organisms we weren't supposed to find were no longer curiosities. They were evidence. Evidence that life's boundaries are far wider than our fears. And that realization demanded a final reckoning. The climax arrived with a realization that rewrote biology's most basic assumptions. Life is not defined by where it survives. It is defined by how relentlessly it adapts. The organisms found in impossible places were not breaking the rules of life. They were revealing rules we never fully understood. Life does not seek comfort. It seeks chemistry that works. Wherever energy flows and molecules can organize, biology finds a way to persist. This insight reshaped the resolution of the search for life. Earth was no longer a rare miracle balanced on a narrow edge. It was one example among many possible outcomes. A single expression of a process far more flexible than we imagined. In extreme environments, life stripped itself to essentials. Repair faster than damage. Adapt quicker than collapse. Share solutions instead of hoarding them. These were not exotic strategies. They were fundamental ones. The lesson carried forward into the modern world. As climates shift and environments destabilize, life will not simply disappear. It will transform, not always in ways we recognize, not always in ways we welcome. But persistence, not perfection, is its defining trait. This reframes humanity's role. We are not guardians of a fragile anomaly. We are participants in a resilient system that has survived far worse than us. That does not absolve responsibility. It deepens it, because life will continue, with or without our permission. The question is not whether biology endures. It is which forms we choose to protect, and which pressures we apply, without understanding the consequences. The life forms we weren't supposed to find did more than surprise scientists. They exposed the illusion of control. They reminded us that life is not rare because it is weak. It is rare only where we stop looking. Life